Hi guys, the former Chancellor and candidate to replace Boris Johnson has been struggling in what has been seen as more and more of a one-horse race. But that hasn't stopped Rishi Sunak from throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, at the wall, hoping it will stick and give him a boost. But in doing so, he ends up looking desperate, and his actions look like someone who's reaching out to the lowest common denominator to pick up votes. This is in reference to comments he made recently while campaigning that he believed virologists and other experts had too much power and ignored the economic fallout of measures to deal with the pandemic in 2020. This is a stupid and frankly dangerous road to be going down, and the fact that the former Chancellor said this was not lost on Kit Yates, a biologist at the University of Bath.
You're really arguing that if there were something like this again, another kind of pandemic, or public health emergency, if anything, scientists need to have more power.
Well, I think both scientists and other experts need to not have necessarily more power, but need to have their voices heard. You know, Rishi Sunak makes this claim that there was, in this article in The Spectator, that there was no socioeconomic impact equivalent of SAGE. People probably aren't aware, but the SAGE's remit is actually quite narrow. It's to review and assess scientific evidence to help inform decision makers. If it was never asked to inform about economic impact, so it may have been the case that public health data was heard more loudly than economic data. But the answer is not to disempower public health scientists, it's to empower economists. And if there was no equivalent of SAGE for the economy, who should we blame for that? Probably the minister who's in charge of the economy, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, who at the time was Rishi Sunak.
But how do we even respond to this? Because Rishi Sunak, who was responsible at the time for the economy, had the power to set up an alternative to SAGE if he wanted to deal with the economic fallout. But he didn't. And now he's suggesting that scientists, virologists and other experts had too much power. And there should have been a greater focus on the economic impact of the pandemic. Now, why is he doing this? Well, he seems desperate at the moment. He's losing out to Liz Truss. It's looking more and more likely that Liz Truss will be the next Prime Minister. And he's desperate. He's throwing everything he can at the wall, hoping it will stick. And this is just another example of that. But it's dangerous because there are still people in the country who don't believe there was a pandemic, or if they do believe there was a pandemic, it was manufactured in some way and it's some attempt to control people. There are these crazy people still around, and they latch on to things like this. Some of them are even in the House of Commons. And I was banging my head against the wall back in 2020 and 2021, listening to these people who were saying, what about the economy? What about the economy? We shouldn't be going into lockdown. We have to protect the economy. To hell with people's lives. It was all about protecting the economy. And as I pointed out before, a lot of these people either own property or are involved in some way with property, and they were losing out because people were not going into city centres, people were not going into office spaces, and they were losing out financially. So they wanted the lockdowns to end so that people would go back to quote-unquote normal. It was all about protecting them and their interests. It was not about protecting the NHS or protecting the public. And today, the question that the former Chancellor is saying, did we spend too much time listening to experts? This is insane. And as I said, it's going down a very dangerous road. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.